not defined you. But one thing your past does is give you like a little rear view mirror into the things that you have experienced in life. And then you could sit back and do an aha moment like, huh, I went through that and look where I am now. That's one of the best things about looking back into your past, because even when the odds were stacked up against you, everything that was dealt to you, it was set up for you to fail. And when you somehow, by the grace of God, come out of that situation and you are nothing like what you went through, that right there is nothing but a testament to God. And I know I used to be ashamed of my past. I used to be ashamed of my family. I never wanted to talk about certain things in my family because I was embarrassed. I felt like my family's identity would have rubbed off on me, so people would know certain things about my family and then, you know what I mean, not like me, talk about me like, oh, her parents are on drugs or, certain things. So at a young age, I was very cautious of what people knew about my past, what people knew about my parents. Well, at that time, my mom, because I didn't even know who my dad was at that time. But I was very cautious of the things that people knew because I knew how judgmental people were. I also knew that I was nothing like my mom or the things that I was experiencing in life. So I always equated, your past as something negative. And it wasn't until I got older and I started to realize, like, had I not gone through certain things, I wouldn't be the person I am today. And then with that, I would not be the mother I am today. There's nothing about my past now that I'm ashamed of, because the things that happened to you were not in your control. And that's something I had to tell myself, like, why am I ashamed of something that I had no control over? I didn't allow myself to be in this situation. I didn't allow these people to be in my life. I didn't allow myself to be abused in any form or fashion. I did not allow those things to happen. So I should not be taking on the bulk of the responsibility and those feelings like as if I did something and I'm blaming myself. Like, no, these were the things I was exposed to, unfortunately, and it's like, okay, well, how do you navigate? How do you get through this time? How do you process these feelings? How do you make sure you do things differently with your own children? And every time I think back to my past, it's like I really thank God. I thank God for the things that, I know this might sound crazy, but I thank God for the things that I didn't have. I thank God for the struggles. I thank God for the people who left me. I thank God for everything that happened to me, good or bad, because when I sit and I look at myself today, or when my children, come up and they're hugging me and telling me how much they love me, I always think back to that little girl who was broken, that little girl that was so traumatized and, hurt and just lost and confused and trying to figure out who she was as a person and also processing what I was experiencing. Had I not had those moments, it wouldn't have forced me to be who I am. And so many people say that, but I just wanted to speak on it from my own perspective. I'm at the park just like thinking and just, reflecting on life and stuff. And it's like, if everything would have went my way and I would have got everything that I wanted, there would have been nothing that would have pushed me and motivated me to make me become who I am. I had to go through a period where I was isolated or my family turned their back on me. I had to go through all of that. Had I would have still had family support, I would have never reached my fullest potential because I would have always known I had somebody to rely on. I would have always known that I had, like that backbone. But when you have nobody, everything falls on you. And 2 weeks before I graduated high school, maybe 3 weeks before I graduated high school, I know it was the end of May in 2003. And the place that I was living at, because I was not living with family, but the place that I was living at as a teenager, I was kicked out 3 weeks before high school. And the reason why I was kicked out is because at that point I was over 18. My birthday's in December, so I started kindergarten at 6. So I'm not like a year behind, but I was literally a few weeks away from graduating high school. And me and this lady, we had not a good relationship. She only allowed me to come to her house for money, and that's okay, because I didn't have to answer to that. She did. And once the money stopped and me and her kind of already had a bad relationship, she just like picked a random day and she kicked me out. And her doing that was the best thing that ever happened to me. Even though looking back, it was an inconvenience. Like I said, she kicked me out 3 weeks before my high school graduation. And, she was expecting to kick me out and I was going to fail. She was expecting to kick me out and I was literally going to turn to the streets or do whatever. And God allowing her to do that, it was a stepping stone for him to open up the doors for me. And not only did I finish high school, I finished high school in June. I want to say about 6 months later, because it was the beginning of 2008, is when I got my first apartment. I had just turned 19 years old, and I have been living on my own since 19 years old. I have not lived with nobody since I've been a minor. God has provided for me in ways that I'm still trying to process and understand, like, why me? And it's not saying that I'm not deserving, but I also feel like maybe there was other people who may have needed this opportunity more than I did. I don't know. But I just know that God had his hand on me my whole entire life, you know what I mean? And when I think back to these moments, it literally is like, had those things not happened, I would not be who I am today. So just to finish up about the whole high school graduation. So like I said, I got kicked out right before high school graduation. 6 months later, I got my first apartment, right? When I got that apartment, I did not have to pay rent for 3 years. So when I moved in 2008, I was not required to pay anything for 3 years until I think it was like March of 2011. At this time in 2011, I had already had a child and I was pregnant with one on the way. Mind you, when I got the apartment, I did not have any children. I was not pregnant. But I think back to even times like that, and I'm like, how many people could say that they got their first apartment and they didn't have to pay any rent for 3 years? And no, it was not Section 8. I was able to get this apartment because the woman who was taking care of me, who kicked me out, she was getting benefits through the state. I wasn't in foster care, but it was called kinship care. So because of that, I was eligible for certain programs, and I was able to pick up my apartment. You know, they paid my security deposit. They paid my monthly rent for 3 years. And my aunt, she gave me all of my furniture, like literally furnished my whole entire apartment from head to toe. Like, when I tell y'all, I was 19 years old, and I think back, it's like that lady kicked me out a couple weeks before high school graduation. Had she not did that, would I still have been offered that opportunity to get an apartment? Would I still have, and me getting my apartment, that's what opened up the doors to me becoming a woman and me just, you know, elevating in life, and then things just took off from there. But if she didn't kick me out, I would have been comfortable. I wasn't trying to leave on my own. I was not one of those people where it's like, oh, I can't wait till I'm 18 so I can leave, blah, 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 blah. That was not me. So, you know, she did something good for me, not even knowing she did something good for me. Her kicking me out, in her mind, she thought she was hurting me. But that right there was the best thing that ever happened to me, along with so many other things that was traumatic in my past. But had it not happened, it wouldn't have molded me into who I am today. So anybody who's watching this who, you know, may have had a rough past, and I'm sure a lot of people have, I don't know why I feel like I'm the only one who like went through traumatic stuff, but a lot of people, you know, just don't feel like comfortable talking about it, I guess. I'm just to a point where now I'm an open book, but I'm very comfortable with talking about certain things in my past because it does not define me. The traumatic things that I went through and the people that I was attached to and all of that stuff, I did not have that happen by choice. So with me taking the blame off of myself as if I chose that for me, it's easier to process and it's easier to talk about and to, you know, let it go and be able to help somebody else who's in that situation. Your past was just that. It was things that happened to you that you had no control over. You had no type of say so, no nothing. But it does not define who you are. It is not your identity. But at the same time, if those things did not happen, it wouldn't have pushed you into your blessings. It wouldn't have pushed you into the person that God needed you to be. You know what I mean? And sad to say, but sometimes those very tough moments and tough times is exactly what we need to give us that kickstart.